Welcome and thank you so much for watching WTV Sports Center. It's indeed my hope that you're enjoying your Saturday afternoon. Here at WTV Sports Center, we have a great show lined up for you. We are going to tell you what's happening in the world of rugby and football. Always a pleasure being your host. My name is Elijah Mwangi. Today I'm joined by one of the writers for Sportica.com and Touchline, a blog that covers sports and news. This is Collins Ogutu. Thank you very much for finding time for us.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Pleasure. Now, moving on to our first story, we are starting with matters rugby. And the latest is that Safaricom Limited on Thursday announced its decision to sponsor the 19th edition of Safaricom Sevens, which will be held at Safaricom Stadium in Kasarani as from 2nd to 4th October. Safaricom withdrew its sponsorship of rugby 5 months ago following allegations of corruption and fraud within the Kenya Rugby Union.
In April of this year, we made a very difficult decision, which was to pull out of rugby sponsorship. And the reason for that was that we weren't happy about the way things were being run. Corruption is something which I personally take a very strong position on. My company takes a strong position on. And it's pleasing to see that the President of the Republic is also taking a strong position on. So we can't compromise on those things.
Last month, the Kenya Rugby Union chairman Richard Omwela assured sponsors that the KRU board would improve governance, accountability and transparency within both the union and the sport. Since then, the board has initiated measures aimed at cleaning the house, including placing the forensic report by audit firm PKF before KRU's independent disciplinary committee.
One of the things that sponsors want to see is a change in attitude, a change in the way we do business, and accountability. And one of the things we've done is bring Ron on board as the CEO of the union, and Fred here, who was introduced as the CFO of the union, to look after our funds at the union. And what now happens is that we are all non-executive directors of the union. Just like many of you who sits on board as non-execs, you don't show up at the company every day to find out what's happening.
After reviewing the steps taken by KRU to address the issues that made Safaricom withdraw the sponsorship, the Director, Consumer Business Safaricom, Sylvia Mulinge, said that they are now confident with the progress that the sponsorship of 30 million Kenya shillings to Kenya Rugby Union in support of this year's Safari Sevens.
When we entered into the partnership with the Kenya Rugby Union in 2010, our vision was to grow the game of rugby from just being a game that was at the grassroots level to national level, and in that way support a sport that has for many years been considered a national asset. However, of course, as we have said, and our CEO, Mr. Bob Collymore, has continuously brought out into the public domain, is the fact that the game, in spite of the beauty and the love that has been displayed by the Kenyans, was overshadowed by a lot of sideshows which were plaguing the sport, costing rugby in Kenya its reputation and undoubtedly hindering the team from performing optimally on the world stage, despite the commitment and the passion of the players and the fans.
The sponsorship, however, does not extend to 2016 edition of the National Sevens Circuit or Safari Sevens Tournament, with Safaricom adopting a cautious approach towards full sponsorship of the circuit until it's fully satisfied with KRU's remedial measures.
We do have to say, though, that while we have not yet fully seen everything that we needed to be implemented, having been implemented at this particular time, there's a suite of changes that we had requested to be considered, specifically around governance, accountability, and transparency, which still need to be taken care of.
While Safaricom will not be the title sponsor for the event, the company remains optimistic about a full turnaround in the management of the sport, which will this year mark 19 years since the Safari 7 series was launched in 1996.
We have Italy, we have Portugal, we have Samurai International, we have Spain, we have Namibia, we have Tunisia, we have Zimbabwe, we have Brazil. Brazil specifically coming because they'll be hosting the Olympics next year, and they've been very keen to travel and see the experience of hosting a big level sevens tournament. So they have been on the phone almost every week saying whether we are on or not, and they wanted to go somewhere else. We have the Welsh Warriors, who are past winners of this event. We have Canada. Canada have been a revelation on the last circuit, if you all remember, playing very, very good rugby, and Canada want to see the Kenya experience. We have the Australian Icons, who are also past winners of this event. Our neighbors, Uganda, are keen to come. We have Western Province. We have Argentina. And obviously, we have Kenya Shujaa, who will be participating.
Now, Collins joins me to analyze that story where we have Safaricom joining hands with Kenya Rugby Union to sponsor Safaricom Sevens. The first question that I'd really like to throw to you is that what is your reaction when you see a corporate like Safaricom saying that the main reason why they had decided to suspend the sponsorship is due to accountability and corruption?
All right. First of all, Elijah, I'm fascinated with what is going on at Safaricom and the rugby sponsorship. We all know why Safaricom declined the other time to sponsor some of these sports. And right now they're coming back into the game, which is a good thing for rugby, it's a good thing for sports. But then the question is then, are we going to be accountable enough right now that they've said they're going to sponsor us? That brings the question of accountability. And accountability is not on the players, it is on someone behind the scenes. So you see, when the rugby, let's take for example rugby union.
Yes.
I mean, the members of the board, a lot of them have been accused of embezzling funds left, right and center. And when you heard Bob Collymore speaking, he was categorical and he said he would not inject money to any sport and then someone runs away with that money. So right now that he has come back again with something like close to 30 million, it's a challenge to the rugby union and to any other sports that want corporate sponsorship, because then someone needs to wake up and say, I'm not going to embezzle this fund. I'm going to put it to right use. And that is what we're watching. As sports writers, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those guys who are eating that money.
Talking about accountability, and many teams, not even rugby, even football clubs have been struggling with sponsorship. Let's look at the performance of the Kenyans team. We see Gor Mahia sometimes even doing very well, but still struggling with finances. How do you explain that?
It's hard to explain, but yet we must explain. Let's take, for example, you've talked about Gor Mahia.
Gor Mahia, yes.
It's a team that amazes everybody whenever they play. But the question is, why don't they have a sponsor? Why are people running away from Gor Mahia in terms of sponsorship? Then that brings us back to the question of accountability. There could be somebody who is not accountable. But then there are also some characters that crop into the field of sports. Things like hooliganism. If I am a corporate organizer or an organization, I would not bring my money to a team that keeps on fighting other teams. And then also things like corruption. Look at AFC Leopards. AFC Leopards had a sponsor, Mumias Sugar Company. Mumias Sugar Company was on its deathbed.
Yes.
So they said we cannot sponsor you anymore. So right now the sponsor of the AFC Leopards is Star 5 something hash, of which someone got to be prudent enough and say we must do things right. And therefore the moment they start doing things right, sponsors will come. But listen, if they keep doing the same thing, same time, again and again, no sponsor will come.
Gor Mahia launched the Gor Mahia bread the other day. Now we see, if it was not for Safaricom coming to sponsor the Kenya Rugby Union, or rather Kenya Rugby Union organized matches, then maybe in the near future would see the trend going down. So for rugby, do you think maybe they are not doing good enough in terms of coming up with initiatives like the way we are seeing in football?
I think they're not getting creative. If you sit on your desk every other time, each morning, every other day, and you're not getting creative, even a sponsor will say, come on, let's move to another team. So the thing that these teams need to do is that get creative. If a team wants sponsors, the first thing to do is you have to perform.
Yes.
And no sponsor would go to a loser, all right? So they got to perform. After they have performed, the team management must be responsible for the whole team. Let them do the right thing. All right, but then if they don't do that, we'll reach a point where we shall not be having even sponsors for smaller teams. So it's all about accountability, perform and do everything right. Kill corruption everywhere.
We are talking about Gor Mahia, and some people are even saying on Sunday, that is last Sunday, it would have been better if Gor Mahia played instead of Harambee Stars. I'm talking about Harambee Stars versus Chipolopolo. What did you get from that statement? Do you think our boys, that is, the Harambee Stars, shined, or was it just a bad day in office for them?
No.
Harambee Stars versus Zambia.
Let me tell you something, Elijah. I'm one of those people who are not surprised when Harambee Stars lost. That's for sure.
You see, that amazes me because we were the first to score. Olunga did his part. I think we were unlucky. It was just a bad day in office
No
for
way,
us.
no way. Let's not blame luck. We get to the field. In football, there is no if and there is no almost. All right? You don't get out of the pitch and say, I almost scored. The question is, did you score? So if Olunga scored, if you watch that game, I was at the stadium. I watched the match, I watched every bit of it. I was surprised at the team selection, that's number one. And then the goal Olunga scored was marvelous, all right? But the style of play that Harambee Stars employed on that day was far much worse than the other styles that we've seen. So we were lucky enough to have lost the match with a smaller margin of -1. We would have lost that match big time.
But looking at possession, because I also followed the match very closely, and I want to disagree with you that Kenya really, dominated the game, and they were really attacking. It's only that if you compare in the shots on target for Harambee Stars and Zambia, I think Harambee Stars had an edge. That is according to my assessment. I stand to be corrected. It's only that there was a statement on a light note. Someone said Zambia just had 2 shots on target, unfortunately got 2 goals. So even if the keeper was not there, I mean, it would still have worked the same way. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that Harambee Stars, to me, dominated the game.
I will get back to the same thing I've said. You dominated the game. Did you win? We did not. They dominated the game, yes. At what point? You know, if a ball takes a lot of time on your defense, and then it keeps the midfield and gets to the strikers, there is a problem. All right? If you looked at that style of play very well, and I'm blaming Bobby Williamson on this, and I will blame him again and again. One, we had a team that didn't want to use midfield. The first mistake was putting 2 defensive midfielders at the same point, at the same time. 2 people doing one thing, they will never perform. That is Wanyama and Genaro Gattuso, Collins Okop, also known as Gattuso. So if these 2 guys had been employed, you realize that a lot of balls were taking place at the center of the field, the central defense, and then skipping the midfield and getting to Olunga. That goal scored by Olunga, if it were not Olunga, no one else would have scored that goal. So I still say they performed, yes, but I'm not surprised that they lost.
That's according to Collins Ogutu, but you can always tell us what you think. Remember, our SMS line is 20058, and you can also find us on Twitter at WTVK. Use the hashtag SportsCenter.